Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Page of Swords podcast, episode 11. I'm really excited to bring my guest, Allison, to the show today. She is a IFBB Pro bikini competitor. So, Allison, please go ahead. We'll start with the basics. What's your age and where are you from? How long have you been competing?
Definitely. So, first of all, thanks for having me on here. I'm always down to share some knowledge, spread some stories, and bring awareness to areas that need awareness. So I appreciate the reaching out. My name is Allison. I am originally from Long Island, grew up in Indianapolis, and then now I am a transplant in Tampa, Florida. So I live by the beach, which has always been my, dream. And I'm 29, so getting close to turning 30. It's actually getting better with each year, honestly. I think aging is kind of a beautiful thing if you allow it to be. So it's pretty cool.
So as a pro, you said you're 29. Are you young for bikini, or are you older? As a pro, because you've been a pro for a couple years now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you fall in that age group?
Cool question. So it's kind of weird in bikini. You have people like Camille Peratt, who is 40, and she's been on the Olympia stage every year since I can remember. And then you have I think Frida Paulson back 3 or 4 years ago when she went pro. She was the youngest pro to ever go pro at pretty young age, maybe 19. But now you have a few people that are doing really well at Olympia for the last couple years, and the Arnold, that are 18, 19. You have quite a few that are 23. But the general age group, I would say, is probably upper 20s, lower 30s. You still see quite a few 30-year-olds. I mean, Angelica and all the ones that have been winning pretty much. I mean, Courtney was a little bit younger in the age group back then, but most of them were a little bit older. I would say most of the girls who were kicking butt a couple years ago, they're all my age or older.
Okay.
Now there's quite a few young ones, so I would say, 20s.
Yeah, I'm sure
30s.
It's a huge age range, to be honest, because I even know I really like Laura Lee, and she's 23. She's kind of super young. And I really like Angelica, but she's got a long history, and I really respect that. So do you feel like as a pro, it takes time, right? Everybody in it is earn their spot.
Exactly. Sometimes in the sport you get really in your head. It's a lot of ego driven type of self-worth, and you sometimes compare yourself to other people and think, okay, well, there's no way they work as hard as me, or they're too young, what do they know? And it's honestly for instance, the younger ones that started, they must have started when they were 15 or 16. You see that a lot nowadays. I didn't even know, I knew what lifting was. I have an exercise science degree, but it wasn't cool whenever I was younger. Guys, I'm almost 30. This type of competition didn't start getting popular till I was already graduating college. So, it didn't even come to my sphere of even an option to do until I was about 23. And I was like, oh, what's going on with all these people? They look really good.
So when did you start going to the gym? How old were you? Was that 23?
Well, I have a really interesting history with the gym. I guess it's just been a long one. I started doing sports whenever I was in high school. I used to lift for swimming. And so I have some history with lifting in high school. Then in college, I would go to the gym. I was one of those half the year workouters just to get in shape around the holidays and spring break and summer. And then I'd be like, hey, it looks great, whatever. So I'd lift. I loved lifting, but I was always afraid because there's always dudes everywhere. And I was literally the only girl in the college gym with a bunch of guys around me. I'm like, this is not where I like to be. So it was a little weird. But then my senior year, I started doing CrossFit. And I did CrossFit and sports performance style stuff for a couple years. I took a break for a year or two right after college because I wanted to party and just live my life as an adult that didn't have to be in school. And I started picking it back up again really seriously when I was about 23, but then I broke my ankle. And I had to take a break. And honestly, it was a blessing in disguise because I ended up really finding my path and realizing like I had to put in some work to have the life that I wanted. So 2016 is like when I went balls to the walls. I haven't, besides my breast augmentation surgery, I haven't really stopped.
Yeah, I was going to say the NPC website shows that your first show, I think, was 2016, right?
Yes. Yep. I made a commitment to myself in 2016 to compete. I was like, I'm going to do this. So I started telling everybody and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this because guys, like I have stage fright. I am like super nervous to do any public speaking or get on a stage. So like those pictures right there, that was my first national show. So what happened was in September of 2016, I won my whole show and I didn't know anything about the sport. I just knew I liked it and I wanted to like do better and be a pro. So I was like, fuck it, let's just fly out to Florida. And so I did nationals and got my butt kicked, but you know, it was a learning experience.
You look great. I love, like, your legs are fantastic. Do you remember what your feedback was at this show?
Yeah, thank you. So essentially, my quads were a little bit too big, my core was slightly too defined, and my back was a little, like my lower back could have been a little bit flatter. Essentially, all the things I was doing to get in shape for this show was like, let me lift, right? Like I love squatting, I love deadlifting, like, and then I started realizing in bikini, it's not about strength or lifting, it's about like aesthetics and proportions.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, to hear that you had big quads, it's just, I mean, I get it. Cause like I look at them and I love them, but you're right for the division. Like honestly, this right here, I feel like back then, if you would have like added a little more size, like you're almost going to be a wellness.
Yeah.
I mean, back then.
Yeah. Definitely. My quads grow like weeds, so that's a whole nother story of issues that cause whenever you stop training certain muscle groups. But yeah, I just had to stop training them essentially.
Yeah. And then, so how long did that go for that you stopped? And then.
Yeah. So 2017, I ended up competing that whole summer. I did okay. I won a couple shows, but I didn't get to do a national show. I still had my heart set on going pro. I just wasn't ready, and I could feel it in my heart. It just wasn't my right time. I wasn't leaning out the way I needed to, and my legs were still too big. That was my critique. You know, just like get your conditioning better and get your legs smaller. So essentially,
I'm looking at
that's
the
what I had to do. Yeah, and so that was one of my first shows in the season, and I wasn't as lean for that one as I needed to be. That was like my main feedback.
And you switched up your suit color too. So how did because you started with green and then you're going to red here.
Yeah, so the judges did not like the blue. And so you can see that was actually my first one out of the gate. The one that you showed before was my second. And that one I wasn't lean enough. So they said that like conditioning was the main priority. They didn't really say much about my suit. They said it was okay. They said they've always liked my stage presence though. I've always gotten great critiques on that. And so this was fast forward, so I went pro, and then this was last year, 2019, my actual first pro season. It was my last show of the season. This is right around the time I realized something was going on with my body, hormonally and thyroid wise.
I was gonna say, because you did a couple shows, so you did I remember Puerto Rico, girl, because you got top 5.
Yeah, I did.
I was so excited for you.
I was so excited. I was feeling good, and my only critique right there was you could win a show, you just need to get 2 pounds tighter. Like you have the proportion, you have the stage presence, like we like you, and that got me really excited for sure. But it didn't end as well as it could have.
Yeah. So how long did you prep in 2019 then?
Yeah, so I started my prep back in February probably, but my off season weight, I only got up to like 127, and on stage when I went pro, I got down to 108. So I got really tiny. Like right now I'm sitting at 145. So for me, it was like itsy bitsy. So whenever I got down to like 112. That's what I was competing at last year, 115, 112. And they were like, you need to be a little bit tighter. So I was prepping from February until May when my first show was, end of May.
Okay. Yeah, so quite a bit. I mean, who's your coach, by the way?
I was with Sarah Lyon, so
okay.
she's not with Underground Athletes anymore, but at the time,
Okay.
that's what it was.
Okay, that's cool, because I'm sure you've been with a few different coaches, right, throughout your.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I've sprinkled around throughout my beginning years.
And as a pro, I mean, you probably see that. You see people, like, you just want to try different people, and I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
So there's a couple different perspectives I feel like you can take. So one is thinking the grass is greener on the other side. Or the other one is you are still trying to figure out your style and you're realizing other people's styles aren't okay with you, whether or not it's them wanting you to take the drug route or you to do only if it fits your macros, you want to be on a meal plan, you know, like all the small, silly details of prep.
Yes. And how long are your preps typically? I mean, I'm sure it depends on the coach, but like, what is the standard time for you?
For sure. So it depends on your off-season weight. Now, with where I'm at now, if I was to go back, I'd probably be prepping for 6 months to 9 months of, you know, up and down dieting. However, to go pro, when I got up to this size, I went balls to the walls. I had a really bad off season after 2017, the pictures that you were showing that from that season. And I just rebounded, didn't reverse diet, and I just had fun. Like I lived life for the first time in a year and a half, right? Lived life. I just kind of let loose. And that just ended up being excessive weight gain. Now in retrospect, I was dealing with health conditions then. My blood work was showing it. My doctors weren't reading it correctly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I gained a lot of weight. And now in retrospect, it wasn't just my eating habits. It was that. So then I had to spend from January until July to lose from like 145 down, or 145 down to like 108. It was a long prep. So I would say like normal people, I would say you need 4 to 5 months if you're in a healthy range.
Healthy range, note.
Yeah.
Because you're right. There's it's kind of hard to say per person. I feel like a lot of beginners, like I feel like every beginner has that off season that just goes a little too far, but it's like a good learning experience and you don't really know until you go through it. I'm sure you would agree with that. And but then you get better the more you stick with it because it is a process. But here it's interesting because you did have a problem that you're like learning about now, and we can kind of talk about that now. So now that you did this show in Miami, and then you're finding some health problems that were reoccurring from before.
Definitely. So one of the things you hear coaches that care about your health say, make sure you're getting blood work done. And, you know, even if your coach isn't saying it, there should be a little birdie in your ear saying like, hey, I've heard people say get blood work done. Like, listen, I that's like one of my biggest advices right now, because this is a really hard realization, but when you compete, you have to pay your dues in some way or another afterwards. And I'm paying my dues, and I just didn't realize what I was doing in the moment. So what I mean by that is in 2017, when I was getting blood work done, it was showing that I had hypothyroidism, and I actually lost my period in 2016. Yeah. And I got it back for 1 month in 2017. And that was in December when I got larger. So my hormones were messed up too. They just, you know, they checked my levels. Everything was cool. I got mine done again in 2018, like the very beginning of it. So just a few months later, because she's like, it's kind of showing you might have hypothyroidism, but if you come back in and get blood work done, it like we could see if it's better. And she's like, oh yeah, your levels improved. Everything's fine. So I went through all 2018 thinking, yeah, I'm good.
Period
and then,
or no period? Was there a period or no period?
No period.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, so guys, I haven't had a period besides that one time in 2017 since 2016's competition season.
No, I had a similar problem. I went through 2019 without one. So it was like 18 months. So I understand
Yeah.
because you get the blood work done and you tell them about being in the sport. I was open about being on gear, and, the doctor was, I was working with a primary doctor and a gynecologist, and they were just both like, well, watch your estrogen levels and your thyroid. And then it was the thyroid got better first before the estrogen. But it's just like a lot of doctors, as soon as you tell them about gear or just like the fluctuation of weight loss, sometimes they don't really know what to say all the time. So you're right how they said, how you were saying like they weren't reading your blood work correctly, because they're kind
Mm-hmm.
of just going off of a number and like looking for that baseline.
Yeah, and guys, I like real quick insight onto this situation to give you a little bit more details is the levels were actually founded by just a general population. So if you think about what that means, you're taking an 18-year-old who's healthy, a 75-year-old who's old and saggy and doesn't have hormones, and then you're taking a 45-year-old that might have like cardiovascular disease, and you're picking that level. So what they do for you, Paige, would be, oh, let's look at your levels. Oh, your testosterone's in normal levels. It's 17, and the level's like 15 to 75 or something, right? Some like actually I think it's like 25 to 55, somewhere in there.
Mhm.
So if you're in that range, even if you're at the lower, to a primary care physician who isn't an endocrinologist, doesn't specialize in hormone health, they're like, you're good. Like, who cares? Not who cares, but kind of.
Right.
And then you're actually thinking like, where are the optimal ranges for a female who's in their 20s who should have normal hormones, normal testosterone levels on a higher end because she lifts, she eats really healthy, she treats her body well. Like, my levels should be in the 80s. And guess what? When I went in the beginning of this year, whenever my body just started shitting out on me, I had a 5.
That should be like the red flag, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you're working with your coach, right, with this at the time?
Yeah. So
Okay.
this is so in 2018, I got blood work done. Things were cool. Went through my whole entire season, went pro. My reverse was great. I barely gained any extra weight, and I was feeling good. I maintained at like 120 in the 120s, higher 120s. Great for me.
Mhm.
I started prepping again for last year, 2019 season,
Mhm.
and it just was not moving the way it should. I mean, we were working hard, and
Mhm.
I wasn't seeing the progress like I saw. Like 2016, it fell off like fucking butter. 2017, not the best. 2018, it was tough, but I was like so motivated. And then 2019, it was like really tough.
Yeah.
So long story short, I was like, oh, well, I'll just reverse. Things should just go back to normal. The last few times I got my blood work done, they said it's fine. Like, it's just in my head. Like, I'm just not pushing as hard as I should. And the beginning of this year, when I was going to start prepping for 2020, I had this intuition and a few people in my ear like, hey, I don't think your body is like responding. You should not prep. And I'm like, I want to prep. Like, I want to go to Olympia. Like, I'm just like,
Mm.
rah, rah. And I hit such an intense wall earlier this year to the point where I couldn't ignore it, dude. Like, my bloating I gained like 7 pounds
Mhm.
of just stomach bloat, and it didn't go away for like a month or two, and it was painful. So I went to the doctor,
Mhm.
got more blood work done, went to an endocrinologist this time to
Okay.
have him read my stuff. Lo and behold, he was like, we have good and bad news. The bad news is everything that could be wrong is wrong. The good news is we know what's wrong, so we can fix
Okay. Good. That's good.
it.
That's really, I mean, that's what you want, is them to kind of have an answer for you at least. So,
Mm-hmm. And when you're looking for a doctor for this, they're not going, like, a primary care physician is not going to test you for all the different thyroid markers. They're not going to test you for all the hormone markers. And even if they do, they don't know how to read it because they don't check, like, are you doing it with your period? They don't know, like, the different phases and everything. So that's, like, one thing to always keep in mind, guys, if you're thinking about getting blood work or you have. I'm not saying your blood work reading was wrong, but I'm saying that there's a 75% chance that it was read wrong.
especially when you're working as hard as you are, like you said, and like, I mean, I've had so many girls ask me, about it. Just that they're literally like, I'm doing like 2 hours of cardio and I'm not doing anything. And I'm thinking like, if you're already at the 2 hour mark and nothing's happening, that's a big red flag to pull out, because there is something wrong with your body, because it's not you. You're doing all the work. It's something
Mm-hmm.
internal, and you can't really, it's not like an outside blemish where you can be like, oh, there's something wrong. Like the inside, you can't, like you need your doctor. So like you were saying, like you had the bloating as a sign. And
Yeah, there are quite a few signs.
what kind of pain were you having? Was it like abdominal?
Yeah, it was abdominal. I was constipated. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I was having extreme mood swings. I was irritable to be around. Like, honestly, I'm nice to other people, but the second I was around my boyfriend, I was like, you know, just a raging bitch. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, you know, I just could tell, like, internally, I wasn't aligned with like where I should be mentally.
Mm-hmm.
So those signs alone were enough to like get me going. Like I was always cold, my hands were clammy, they were like, you know, just all the signs that you can imagine. Like I think I had like all of them except one.
So what were they saying? Are you still working to getting better? Like, what was the first step? Like when they
Yeah.
told you what was up?
So essentially, he said I was like, I had the markers of a grandma. I had zero producing hormones in my body. I had 5 testosterone, no progesterone, and like a minimal amount of estrogen, like as like an old dried up female would have, like an 80-year-old. So that was one thing. Now, on the other hand, I don't just have a hypothyroidism, I have Hashimoto's disease. So essentially, it's an autoimmune disease. It's triggered from environmental factors, and it's a genetic thing. So unless you have it genetically predispositioned in your family, you're not going to get that version of hypothyroidism. Mm-hmm. He thinks that it could have been just my intense work, probably in the 2017 year, that triggered it, because that's the blood work that I can go back to. And guys, I'm not just saying they kind of missed the dial on my blood work those 2 years, but they missed the dial. I think it was my TPO reading supposed to be like 5 to 12 or something, and I was having 650. Now mine's 330, right? So it just showed like how stressed my body was. So essentially that's your like antibodies attacking yourself.
Yeah, your body's like something's wrong, and it does all that. And like, you know, as a competitor, we all want to work so hard, and I think we have a hard time pulling the e-brake.
Yes. Yeah, that's such a good way to put it. Yeah, so with the recovery process, I had to really take an identity hit. I've already been like trying to deal with my identity of being a competitor and being like me. Mm-hmm. And so whenever I got sick, it was like, whoa, really now I can't even do the things that I identify myself as, a competitor. Mm-hmm. Even though that's not the only thing I am, it's just still a hard pill to swallow. Mm-hmm. And our progress, so we started in May. He had to put me on HCG, which is to get your hormones producing naturally. Mm-hmm. I'm about to get my blood work done after a 5-month span of it. I have to shoot myself every single day with it. It's expensive as fuck because it's not covered by insurance. And hopefully we have some changes. My estrogen's been going up. Mm-hmm. My testosterone's barely there, and my estrogen or my progesterone's just not moving. Mm-hmm. Thyroid wise, I've been on levothyroxine for the whole time. My levels are finally starting to like get normal, but I've had blood work done 5 times in the last 5 months. Not like none of my medicine's covered, because it's just, what's it called, the natural versions of everything. So it's just been a process. But I do have to say, if you're going through something like this, or you think you might, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it all comes down to your own mindset and your perspective of getting better and realizing that it's a long freaking journey. Like, I'm not going to be better with this until, he said, probably March to May. Right.
And I'm sure you are, like, as much as you want to compete again, I'm sure you know better. Like, you know, like, hey, like you said earlier about you paid your, you know, you put that time in, and now you kind of have to like fix things because you can't just keep like forcing the body to do something when it's trying to tell you it's not working properly.
Exactly. And it's really tough to switch those gears. However, it's necessary. And like you said really nicely too, if you are realizing that you're doing 2 hours of cardio a day and you're not like, 2 weeks out from a show and you're trying to get off the last few pounds, then there's something probably deeper going on with you. And some of the top people with like thyroid issues are people who, tax the adrenal glands and the pituitary gland.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it takes time, so much time to get that body to respond back to normal, because like I got my period back now, but when I didn't have one, I'm sure it's like you don't know when. Your body's not going to tell you like, hey,
No.
we're getting better. It's not like a download thing where it tells you where it's at in the download process. You're like, you have no idea when you're getting the period back, and you could be doing everything that you think you're supposed to, adding more fats in, trying to de-stress or whatever. And I mean,
Yeah. And it's really interesting you brought that up, like the whole, what do you do to get better? Obviously food's a huge thing. When you have like Hashimoto's or even some hormonal issues, you have to think about what food are you putting in your body? Like if it fits your macros, it's not going to work. I'm essentially on a prep outside of prep with my diet. I eat less foods than I would eat in a normal prep. I'm on a FODMAP. I eat high fats, lower carbs. I don't track everything I eat intuitively, but I eat a meal plan. I've been doing this for so long. It's like I can look at a burger and tell you how many calories in it. Like I can be like, that's a 4-ouncer, and that, So
I get you.
right. And then I think the most basic things are overlooked. Now, what I mean by basic is breathing and meditating and reading and just being and relaxing. Because if your hormones are messed up, your adrenal glands are fatigued, all these like signs of a body being overworked, it means you need to slow down. You need to learn how to stop. And this is your body's way of telling you, stop doing it.
I'm glad you bring that up about yoga. I did see that you do that weekly, where you're doing like your meditation and breathing and yoga. And like as a bodybuilder, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are like, I want to lift weights, I don't care about yoga. So like, how's that working for you?
Less is more, especially when your body's resisting. And it's hard. For me to go down to 4 days a week training, I'm like itching to like have a chest only day, but I can't because I only train 4 times a week. Like, I'm like, ugh. And so like I do multiple things on multiple days. I do yoga and I just focus on being outdoors and walking and treating my body with kindness, because there's one part of me that just wants to like slam the weights and like work out every day. And the other part of me is like, what's that going to do for me besides keep me sick?
Right. Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, looking back at your pictures, I mean, it must be nice to know that the judges did give you a positive note with the feedback. Like you have the look, but then you have to bring the conditioning, which is kind of what you're working on essentially right now, because your body's not going to respond until everything's fixed.
Exactly. And, it's a blessing. I've had now 2019 into 2020, and now I'm going to have 2020 into 2021. So almost 2 full years of building. And I know I put on a lot of mass. Even though I'm a little fluffy right now, I can see it. I can feel it. It's like I can see my muscle tone through the fluff. And it's just like, okay, I feel bigger. I know when I cut down, I'm going to look great, but I have to do it in a timeline that respects my body. And I also have to kill the expectation of coming back to the stage, because if this lasts longer, my health is my main priority. Like it
should be, yeah.
I can't do this to myself again and be okay with it.
It's all a learning lesson. And that's why I'm really glad that you are able to open up about all this, so that other people can try to learn and be aware that it's very important to, especially if you're a beginner, like look for these signs, because obviously you as a pro and a seasoned competitor like myself, like we'll try to help you if you listen. Just
right? It's so true. I feel like, people like you, me, and like all these people who are like a little bit more woke in this sport, or have unfortunately had to deal with the shit to understand it. Yes. We're like yelling from the rooftops, like, don't do this, like run. And people are like, oh, like whatever. But I think it's just the lack of education. Like if you're thinking about competing, like you have to know your coach's philosophy, because I'm so different in coaching compared to the person next to me compared to you, compared to like anyone in the sport. So like you were saying before, you know, like how do you pick? And it's just like,
right, you kind of have to follow these people, research these people. Maybe your friend is coached by them and you like the way that they look, but hey, that's really hard to go off of too, because like I know me and myself, like my coach is someone who I looked up to for a long time. She's actually the same height as me and kind of like what I ideally would like to look like. So I would say like genetically we might be similar in that sort of way, but not a lot of people are going to think that way, because you have to think too, like there's nothing wrong with a male coach either, and you're not going to have their stature or anything like that, but you do just have to be aware of like there just has to be a good relationship from the beginning.
It's the philosophy and finding someone who cares, because not all coaches care. I've had many horror stories come to me, and what I mean like in horror stories is things that you wouldn't even believe, like people lying and putting like people on drugs without telling them that they're taking them or what kinds they are, and like giving them insane protocols or completely just ghosting them after they pay, like just all the bad things. So it's like doing your research and spending time and not jumping the gun, getting to know the person. Like even if it means you creep on their Instagram for, you know, a month or two, you're going to get to know their personality if they post, like that's for sure.
Oh, and another thing I would definitely say look at who their clients are and just DM them. DM the clients.
Definitely.
Like you don't even have to DM the coach. Just be like, hey, I saw you're working with so and so, and I just wanted to know, do you like them? Like, is it cost efficient? Like, are you happy? Like, I would do it to one person. You know, if you're gonna spend all this money on a coach, you should, you know, make sure all the boxes are checked.
Yeah, and you're placing your health in someone else's hands, so you have to be sure that they are educated in the area that you might have issues with, or they care enough to like work with you to get you through certain stuff. So it's just your own research. You know, it's no one else's fault except your own when something goes wrong with a coach, because you should be doing the research. If like, you know, personally, if someone came to me, hey Al, would you like to take Andivar for this prep and see how it makes you feel and like you'll gain muscle, I'd be like, let me go on the internet and actually Google what the fuck that is first, right? Instead of being like, yeah, if it's going to make me gain muscle, it must be a magic pill, because that's what's happening to so many people, and nothing's magic, nothing's easy. There's always a cost, right?
For sure.
I mean, take it. It's okay to take keys, but be sure you understand it. Be sure you understand your coach, and there you go.
Exactly. And I'm actually curious, like as a pro, like do you guys as a like a group, like as in the pro league, like do you girls like talk about things like that? Are you guys open, like, or is everyone kind of like
So
reserved?
it's interesting in the bikini division. Not everyone. There are a few pros, like Hannah DeVore. She openly talks about it, but she and maybe a couple others that I've seen talk about it. Bikini is notorious for undercover taking drugs. Obviously, we don't need the same amount as any other class because we would grow just like the other classes.
Right.
So we take way smaller doses. But I mean, personally, I am not. Now, that's not saying I won't in the future. Like I've taken Clen, you know, I've taken like fat burners.
Right.
But when it comes to performance enhancing drugs, I haven't. And honestly, looking back, I'm kind of grateful I didn't, because I don't know how that would have messed me up even more, because I'm already a little screwed up. But in bikini, it's very common. I mean, no name dropping, but I would say 99% of the pros you see at Olympia are on something.
And honestly, I know there's always the exception of good genetics and everything like that, or just like really hard dieting, but at that elite level, like honestly, like the fat burners, like you said, like Clen or T4, I doubt it any T4, but like just stuff like that. I mean, even an anti-estrogen like Nolvadex or something, it's like, you know, it's just, you're trying to get conditioned, and that's hard.
It's hard when you're a female. It truly is. Like, we're not supposed to get 10% body fat.
Especially the legs, you know, all of us, I mean, bikini, figure, I mean, any division really, what do we want? Hamstrings. Where do most women hold fat? their like glute and underbutt area. Like,
and that comes down to genetics too. You know, if you're unfortunately the lady, like you and I both fold in our lower body, like that's not a doubt. So it's hard because, you know, we can almost get too lean on top because we can't get our bottom lean.
Right. And the cardio and everything. And that's why I'm, you know, when we were talking about that girl that did like 2 hours of cardio, like you don't want to use all your ammo right away because you're going to want to keep your leg muscles, but lose the fat. And I mean, months of a lot of cardio is not good. There's nothing about that sounds good.
Yeah, you have no more levers to pull. And, you know, if you're not starting with the basics with the coach, and, you know, there's so many different red flags, but each red flag is different for an individual person. Now, having like, you know, someone like you or me to just be like, hey, this said, or my coach said this, or like I saw this, like what are your thoughts? Asking people what their opinions are. Everyone else has a different viewpoint. You know, no one's necessarily right or wrong. So I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's interesting. Like that's a whole topic in itself. I feel like we can go on for days about it.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people don't talk about that side. I mean, I feel like people want to, but then they get, you know, worried about what other people will think about the whole like drugs.
They think that they don't work as hard or something.
Yeah. It's like, listen, everybody works hard. We all know what's going on.
Yep. Yeah.
And I would rather educate.
Exactly. And honestly, if I was to run something in the future, I'm probably going to talk about it on my Instagram. Like
I'm starting to.
I just want to make people see that, hey, to look like me, you kind of have to do some shit. Like you can't look like the top Olympian without running drugs.
Right. But you've also put your time in.
Like, oh yeah. These muscles didn't grow overnight.
Yeah. Right. But you did it like your own way. Like you lifted heavy, like you said, like you built the foundation before trying anything. Like, I mean, I don't know a whole lot of young people. I know that you coach, maybe you know a lot of like young girls getting into the sport, but you just want to be like, yo, pump the brakes. Like
the expectations they set on themselves as youngs are like really, really insane. Like I have to remind my clients almost every single time, you're not running drugs. You won't look like her until like 3 more years of hard work. Like it, you know what I mean? Like you like with drugs, maybe 1.5 years, right? It's still going to take a long time. It's not like drugs put muscle on you. Like that's such a big misconception. They harden you up, they keep you vascular, they increase your recovery time, and they help you grow muscle at a quicker rate. They're not magic pills.
Yeah, you can't over water the plant and expect it to like grow any faster. You're probably just going to destroy it.
Yeah, no, exactly. You would end up destroying it.
Well, so how do you feel right now? So you said you're getting blood work again soon, right? So where things are good right now for you, getting better?
Yeah, they're getting better. I'm definitely better with my mood stabilization. Like I'm not as up and down. I'm generally a little bit more happier. I can wake up earlier. You know, I can go to the gym at 7 in the morning and not feel like I'm dying. You know, just overall better energy. When it comes to the hormones, it's hard to say if anything's changing with that one because I don't really feel different. And he's saying that that's probably an issue. Maybe the HCG is causing levels to rise, but my body's still not naturally producing. Therefore, I'm probably going to have to end up starting to like shoot up testosterone and other hormones to get my levels up because my progesterone's not there either.
And then, I mean, I get that because it's like, it becomes a supplement. Like your body just isn't doing it. So at that point in time, if a doctor is recommending it, there should be nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, not at all. And unfortunately, in my situation and probably some other people, I'm definitely an intense version. Like this doesn't happen to most people. You don't have to take like mass amounts of rounds of like steroids to to get your period back. Right. However, in this situation, the HCG, if it doesn't keep my levels up, if I don't naturally produce, I'll have to, you know, give myself these hormones for the rest of my life to keep producing my period.
Yeah. And that's why you're trying to fix this now. So yeah, I would say, you think, obviously it's hard to say for the future, but do you feel like you're just going to continue working on your health? Like you're not going to you don't have a show in mind right now?
No, so my health is number one. I'm maybe thinking about coming out like next summer or fall. Maybe it has to wait till the winter, and then I'd miss another year of like the competition season. However, if that's what my body needs, then that's what I have to do. And like my main focus right now is one, my business and my clients. Two, well, health is probably first, but but what I'm like with health is like meditation and breath work. Like breathing and posture is so overlooked and so important, and just finding my own inner peace and like my identity again, and rebranding, like kind of rebirthing myself. Like feel like when I come back to the sport, I need to be like a truer version of myself.
I would say your Instagram, I saw you're kind of talking about these like life lessons. That's like a trend. Like, is that a part of your manifestation that you writing these like, blogs and thoughts?
So what happened was I went on like kind of a soul searching trip for a few weeks, or I guess a couple weeks with a friend, and for half the time we were out west with no cell phones, just journals. We meditated, we brought our cameras, and we took a bunch of pictures, and it was exactly what I needed. I am feeling recharged and creative, but during that time I would just have these thoughts that would like kind of provoke me and be like, oh shit, like what? I overlook that every day. So I would just write them down, and I ended up making 10, and I was like, perfect. That's going to be a really cool like little segment on my Instagram, just to share with you guys like kind of what's going through your head when you're out west, like, just disconnected from the world. So I think today's was like, shoot, what was today's?
You said life doesn't stop for you.
Yeah. And that one was really fun because in the story, I was sitting with my friend Steph, and I'm like, man, like the world's just happening right now. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like if we didn't exist, like if something happened to us or we just like died, like the world would still go on. And we put so much pressure on ourselves every single day to just be something instead of just being and like living in the moment and enjoying what we have. And like that realization right there, it's like I've heard it, I've seen it, like I've embodied it, but then I really was like, oh shit, like
what a year to really reflect on that too. Like I did some journaling myself, just writing, like even when I'm doing these podcasts, I just write my notes. It's like the way that I have to be organized, but it just feels better, especially with because you're talking about hormones and everything and your mood, how important sleep is. And I just feel like with our phones and everything, like sometimes before bed to help me sleep, I just need to write thoughts, just put it to a stop.
I just love you that you do that. That's awesome. Like it's such like a lost art, and it helps so much. Our phones kind of just like get us in like this weird mindset. The blue light keeps us up. There's just so many problems with like normal society and bedtime.
Yeah. No, that's what your notes remind me of, with like just writing down your thoughts and how you felt. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I think about really interesting things like this, and then if I don't write them down, I will forget an hour later.
Gone.
It's gone. I'll be like, damn it, I really thought of something cool that I wanted to share with people, or even remind myself. Or so it's cool.
I have like 17 notebooks. Like
yeah, write it down. Write a logbook. Everybody wants to write down their workouts and stuff. How about write down your thoughts? That's healthy.
Amen to that, dude. That needs to be like the headline of this whole entire.
Yeah.
Write down your thoughts, people. Come on.
Yeah.
Get connected to who you are as a person. You're never going to be happy with a certain body if you don't like yourself to start with. So.
And we were talking about identity, and I'm sure, as a pro and being on Instagram, I'm sure you're always trying to set that example for people. And like, I'm sure with everything going on, it's probably discouraging. I'm sure there's times where you're just like, I'm the pro, like I have to be a certain way.
It is sometimes, honestly, it's not always as easy as I might make it seem on Instagram. And unfortunately, that's kind of what Instagram is now. You see it a lot, like the highlight reels of people's life. And I try to keep my thoughts and my image and what I look like as authentic as possible. Like, yeah, half the time I'll put on some makeup and do my hair when I normally like look like a pile of dog poop, but that's okay. I'm not like, falsifying my personality to take a picture. So if that's you, and if you're like done up all the time and you like taking pictures looking super cute, I used to be there. I'm not 23 anymore, you know? So
Dude,
it's
time
just
flies.
be true to you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I just feel like the older you get, the more I think we forget our body changes, and you kind of have to learn as you go. And that's not easy. Like,
You're right with that one. Things just don't glide like they used to. I'm meeting somebody to go to the gym tomorrow, and she's like, let's do handstands. And I'm like, girl, I don't do handstands anymore. She's like, why? And I'm like, I don't want to break myself. I don't know what
yeah.
else to say.
Right. And I mean, that's what you look at those like fitness girls, and I'm just like, man, that's got to be rough on the body to be doing all those somersaults, gymnastic stuff. Plus, you're getting lean and shredded, just like all the other divisions. No
To keep
wonder
up
there's
the
not,
energy.
no wonder it's a very small group of girls, because that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think about their knees.
Really hard. I know. Every time I watch them, I'm like my jaw, like I'm like what?
Yeah.
What's happening?
I think about how many times my hips would crack trying to fling my like limbs around like that. I
I
have
would
mad
definitely like break a
respect.
bone.
I mean, you got to stay
So true.
limber.
Props to them. Mm-hmm.
So looking back at your shows, I did want to ask, which was your favorite show? Because you've done quite a few shows. So I'm really interested to hear
Oh,
some backstage stories.
yeah. I would say my favorite show was my pro debut. So that was 2018 after I went pro. Actually, God, this is hard. When I went pro, it's pretty cool too.
What was it,
So
junior, or wait, oh,
US
yeah,
national, or wait, what was
USA.
I? Junior, or no, USA's was where I went pro. I've done too
Yeah.
many shows. So yeah, that was my pro win. And it was really cool. Like I had a really intense story. I actually got a messed up Airbnb, and I was like stranded and got picked up by like a friend's sister that lived in town, and all this crazy stuff happened. Long story short, I went out like and stayed a couple extra days by myself, ended up meeting Frida Paulson and the whole entire like Vegas group, stayed with them for an extra like week, and just like got to know everybody. So that was a really epic time of my life for sure. I felt very proud
Mm-hmm.
of just my accomplishments, and I was really happy with my physique, and I just knew that day I was like, I'm gonna fucking win this. There's no other option. Like I'm winning. So that was a beautiful moment. My pro debut, that was the Hurricane Pro in 2018, and that was really an amazing thing too, because essentially what happened, guys, is I went from being the amateur, like looking up to pros, to being on stage with them. I was on stage with Camille, like the week after Olympia, and I got 4th place. Like I was elated, and I got to meet all these amazing pros that I've looked up to backstage. I made everybody cookies. I went up and introduced myself to everybody. I was like a giddy little kid, like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe this is happening. And I was really, in the moment then. And I think 2019, I kind of lost myself. So it's like, that's kind of why next year I want to bring it back to really like being in the moment and being with who I am.
And you've went through several suit colors. So when you went pro, you had like that Angelica purple almost. Is that you happy with that suit?
I copied Janet.
Janet, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I copied her. I was like, I met her, and the next year was my pro debut year. Mm-hmm. And I just remember thinking she has the same skin color as me, same hair color as me, similar-ish build. I should probably do purple.
It looked good. And I'm telling you, that's a great way to think of it. I think you kind of have to look at pros and find similar height and hair and skin tone, and kind of look at that. Like, look at the suit, look at the posing style. Like, those are the people. Like, I can think of so many people, like, I'm sure even you, when you look at like a Laura Lee or something, it's like you're kind of definitely two different looks. And
exactly, I'm definitely a little bit happier on stage too, a little bit more happy, flirty, and then there's like the stoics on stage that are like, I'm gonna fuck you, like type. And you're like, okay, so there's so many different like versions. So your suit, your hair, your makeup has to kind of reflect that, because if you don't, you're gonna kind of look like a clash of like all these different personalities.
Yeah, right. And for bikini, like you said, like there's a certain point where some of the girls start to look very similar because you're the look. So then it does come down to the little details like the suit color and the hair, and you really have to put some time and thought into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a meticulous, like any type of bodybuilding, it's like so meticulous. Every detail matters, and it's not even necessarily a competition against other people. It's more about like your own self. So, I got fourth, and then I got fifth, and I got like ninth at New York Pro, eighth at another show. And then my conditioning went to shit my last show, the Miami show. And I like, that's when my body really stopped responding. It was a tough day, honestly, because like I knew it wasn't, I was like, is there even a point of getting on a stage? Like, you can't break a contract, so I had to. But I didn't even place. Like, I was in last call outs, and that definitely hit my ego, even though I knew I wasn't. Like, I was like, I look like shit. Like, it's
Yeah, you're right
fine.
about the contract. That's interesting how, like, I know that you can't break it because don't you have to like pay or whatever when you break it?
Yeah, it's a huge fine, and plus it's like looked down upon.
Yeah, and you don't want that either. I'm sure that is really hard. And because I mean, I follow your old coach in that underground athletes ones, and I feel like a lot of those girls are pushing it. Like I follow the figure girls, and each their own, but there's some girls, they go up and down in placings a lot because I just feel like they're
Yep.
overdoing it, and that's just my opinion.
I think like less is more, right?
Right. I mean, obviously I'm not a pro, but I already know for a fact that my coach preaches that she does not like her competitors doing more than one show unless you want a show and you're going to go to nationals. That's it. You know what I mean? Like my coach is super like, no, we're not pushing it ever.
You have to kind of set those rules. And as a coach myself, I break the news to girls every single time almost I get on the phone with them. Hey, like, would you be my coach? It's like, well, what's your ideas on competing? Well, I want to do a show later this year. And I'm like, yeah, you're not getting on stage for at least a year. Like, one, I have to get to know your body. Two, you might be too lean or not lean enough. Three, your metabolism might be shit. Four, you need muscle always. You always need more muscle. And I need to at least make sure I have a solid, 6-month muscle gaining program for you, because I can guarantee, unless you're coming to me with like amazing physique, you're not close to being like prepared for the level you have to be.
No. And I mean, I get newbies. I'm not a coach, so I can't even imagine what it's like to break the news to people or just be like, hey, like, give me time so we can give you time. Like, it's a process. And
Yeah,
they get so excited.
exactly.
They get so
Well,
excited.
people, yeah, they get caught up in their like dream or the idea, and they just have to have patience. And this is interesting. Like, one thing that I've started changing with my coaching is very few people do I let slip in without going through my mindset program. And yeah, it's a commitment, it's a time commitment, but my like passion is in helping people change their life. And if competing is a segue for you to get there, that's fine. But just as well as I do, and anyone else who's competed, is it leaves you feeling a little bit broken afterwards, just a little. And some people, a lot. So I want to essentially, through this program, through my one-on-one coaching and like mentorship, teach people the skills and the confidence and the identity of who they actually are. Because without that, after a show, you're kind of feeling like in the dumps about everything, your body, your placing, where you're going with your life, what your purpose is.
Yes. And mindset is so important. I'm sure you get to learn a lot about a client that way too.
Yes, it makes working with them a whole lot easier to know, like, well, this person's normally not actually anxious. We'll just make sure we talk to her more, or, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Or poor. I bet you find a lot about their habits, especially with food or whatever else it might
Yeah.
be.
You'll know who's going to stick to a plan as well. So it's really easy after 3 months of intensely working with someone. Is like, okay, well, if I put them on a prep right now, could they handle that?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And I mean, so how many prep clients do you have right now?
Yeah. So all my, let's see, all my athletes that were competing this season, they all just finished actually last weekend. I only had 3 that ended up making it through the Corona craziness, but they all did really well. One of them won the whole entire show, the Indianapolis Championships or whatever. Well, I think that was the name. I don't know. I get confused with the names. So they all did really well. Haven't had a girl go home without a hardware yet, so feeling happy about that. But
That's great.
right now, my prep team is pretty small. Like I think I have, gosh, I don't know, I think I have 8 prep, but I have more, like most of my clients are actually my mentor clients, my lifestyle mindset.
Okay. And
but I'm actually taking applications for bikini girls. So for the 2021 season.
I'm gonna be making sure I put your website and everything else in the show notes for this too. So yeah, you are taking clients. That's good to hear too. Because I mean, this is a perfect time too, because if you want to compete in 2021, work with Allison now. Like, let her get to know your body, and if you want to plan for any of the shows, I'm sure once January pops up, they'll start putting the schedule out, and I would think that things will go back to normal. I think. I know that's still up in the air. Like, people are like, is Olympia going to stay in December? Like, stuck questions like that. So yeah, once the schedule comes out, everybody will be all excited trying to find the show they want to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think starting now is, whether or not it's with me or some random coach that you've been eyeballing for years or months or whenever, this is the time. You need this 6 month to 9 month to 12 months period to prep, to get ready, to get to know your coach and yourself.
Yeah, and I just want to bring up too, like, just to give people a perspective on that. So next week I start prep for the Arnold. That's 20 weeks. So just think, like, if you want to compete in March, it's like you would have needed to start prep like now. You know 100%. What I mean? So
especially if you're not like as serious as you are, you're just kind of a newbie.
Like, I'm an amateur still. So I mean, and
you still know what you're doing a little bit though. You got some years underneath your belt.
Yeah, I think it's getting to 4 or 5 years now, and like I started in bikini, then figure, and it's the Arnold would be my first big show, because if it wasn't for COVID, I would have wanted to do North Americans in September. But without the gym, I was like, no. Like you said earlier, like, you can always build more muscle, and that's where I was at. I was like, more muscle.
Why risk it?
Yeah, I'm having a great off season. I was like, why stop the train? Plus, I mean, it was good that I did, because like I didn't get my period back until like the end of everything of COVID.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean? So I would have started a prep without being completely healthy.
And see, right there, like, that like decision you made, like, that could make or break your whole entire season.
Right. Yeah. It's like, before I like sign my name in blood, let's just let's keep
right before I sign over my firstborn, we gotta figure some things out first.
Hey, like, that's sometimes what prep is like.
Dude, but essentially, I mean, think this is a really fucked up like way to think of it, but like, if you really do prep and ruin your body, you kind of are giving up your firstborn. You might lose your chance to have children. Like, that's how serious this actually is.
Yes, and especially when you add gear, it's like you're signing up for a huge commitment, because it's like, all right, you are paying the price. So when this is over, remember, I can't think of like the way that someone said it to me before, but it was almost like, if you're going to take these steps forward, just know that you got to like take those steps back to then move forward again later. So
no, I love that.
It's a process. Everything's
a process.
And that's why you have to love it. Don't do it for Instagram.
Don't do it for happiness or a desired look, because the look goes away extremely quick, and the happiness doesn't just come. I can tell you that. I've been through it too many times.
Yeah. And I mean, it's fun. Competing is a lot of fun. You meet a lot of people. I'm sure, turning pro is probably amazing, but even when
It's
you
a great
turn
feeling.
pro, the fun doesn't end.
Yeah, and this is one thing to put in perspective, guys. If your whole goal is to go pro because you think it's going to change your life or change your Instagram following or give you like, deals, it's not. Like I still don't get picked up by any companies because they care about look and they care about your amount of followers. It's not going to solve all your problems like you might put into it. And that's not just competing, but that's anything in life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. Companies want someone with a good personality. Companies want to make money. Are you going to make them money? Gotta
Yeah.
offer something. Yeah. And even when you compete, like I don't know if you've seen this, but I feel like the judges, they'll recognize your face. They want you to do shows. So the more shows you do and they recognize you and they're going to know you put money into being in there, you know. So when they see
Exactly.
you more, they're going to know that you are setting a good example for the sport and being up there and everything else. So
100%. You're representing the sport and you have to hold yourself with like, dignity and grace and love. So just taking responsibility for your own actions. Yeah.
and you also like going to EDM concerts, don't you?
Yes, I love to rage. I
I
actually
love
miss
your
it.
outfits though. Your outfits are always so cute.
Well, thank you. I hope that I get to, show off this body a little bit more at some more raves that coming up soon. Like a lot of my rave family lives in Houston, Texas now. So they're back home in Indy or in Houston, and now I just need to create a new little vibe tribe down here. I guess any Tampa locals hit me up.
Yeah, for real. Because Florida's opened back up, so
Oh yeah, we've
you
been
got
open for
you.
a long time, man. Everything's been normal here since like May.
Are you were bartending before? Do you still do that? Okay.
Yeah, so I was bartender until about a year ago. I quit and did full time. Like once my business made enough money to where I didn't have to bartend, I quit. So I quit right as my 2019 season began, and then I just never went back.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that the coaching's going so well then. So if people want to get a hold of you for coaching, how do they do that?
Sweet. Well, my website's under construction. I like really bad at technology, so I keep trying to fix it, and so you can message me. Probably not through my website. You can check it out a little bit if you want. The best thing would probably be through Instagram. So it's Allie Vaeth Fit. I also have Allie Vaeth Fitness at outlook.com is my email address. So you can always email me. You can send me a personal message through a DM. You can even contact me on Facebook. Any way to get a hold of me is totally fine. Like whenever I meet a new person or someone's like a potential client, I usually just want to get you on the phone to talk to you, just a normal conversation because, like you were saying, you got to know your coach. You have to see if your personalities even go together. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
phone calls are great.
easy process. You hop on, talk to me. We'll see if our goals align and we'll go from there.
Is there any other things that you want to promote? Do you you have a YouTube and stuff too, don't you? Have like a podcast or vlog?
Yeah, so my YouTube is Allie Vaeth Fitness. I'm pretty sure. If you type in Allison Vaeth, it should pop up.
You have a link tree. I think that you've got stuff on there that they can.
Yeah, so if you go to my Instagram, honestly, my Instagram's the portal to all things. I work with a few different companies. I do my probiotics through Biome. I have a code. I have my suit sponsor through Crystal Bikinis. I also use my skincare company Frey for years. And really, anything you want to know about me is kind of just laid out there. I'm a pretty open book when it comes to questions. So if you ever need anything, just hop on and send me a message.
That's fantastic. And when's your birthday?
I am a Leo, so it's August 16th.
You're a little fire baby.
I am. I'm such a fire baby. I'm true to all of my like symbols and like personality types, like to a T.
Oh, do you know your moon and rising?
Okay, so I thought I knew it, but then I don't think I actually know my birth time.
Okay. Yeah, that usually helps.
Yeah, I know where it was, but I don't know if it was 7 a.m. or 5 p.m. and that messes it up. So I don't have a father and mother to ask at the moment just because we're, not speaking terms. So I don't know when I was born.
So dang, you're like, I need that information.
I know.
I would be like, where's that hospital? I'm calling them up.
Well, I think oh, that's true. I could do that. I put in either 5 p.m. or something, and like my mind was blown. It was like no Leos. I was like third something Leo, and I was like, this is not right. And I was like, well, I don't really even know my true birth time, so I probably shouldn't freak out about it.
Right. Yeah. Cause like, that's always interesting to see what the personality, I think the moon is like your mother and stuff like that. And then you find a little bit of pieces of yourself, which I know that sounds real out there and everything to maybe some people, but like when you're in the fitness and manifestation and everything, like it is nice to look at astrology as almost a way to just clear your mind, give you some reassurance. I'm not a religious person by any means, but I'm sure when you're competing and you just need like that little extra motivation or something, I think we look at our signs and it really says a lot about ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about believing in the universe, karma, all this stuff. Like, if you don't believe that there's like a greater being, whether it's just like the universe or just the spiritual connection that we all have as a human race, then, you're missing out on a lot of life, honestly. Like, there's more beyond our like meat vessels that we live in.
Yes, agreed. And everything happens for a reason. And then,
yes,
when you're working towards something and your goals, it's just, it's a mindset. It really is. It's what gets you through the day.
It is. At the end of the day, you get to choose your philosophy on how you want to live your life, how you look at everything. And if you don't like it, how you already like live your life, then you have to find the courage in yourself to change it.
Yeah.
Message me.
Yeah.
I'll help you.
Well, girl, I've had you on for an hour and I want to thank you so much for coming on. I think you're going to bring a lot of good, topics and education to people that are listening, because you're a pro and you are setting a good example. So even though you're taking a little break for health, there's definitely nothing wrong with that. That's great. So
I appreciate that, really. And thank you for having on me and thinking of me, like, super cool. I'm happy to be on here and like reach out to some other people. Hopefully you can learn from our mistakes, right?
Definitely. Oh yeah. And this sport, we're always learning. So, hey, we're out there just trying to help, have some fun and compete.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you so much. And guys, I will have this uploaded ASAP. So, all right. Have a good one.
See ya. Peace.
Yeah.